Hey everyone, thanks for, I can't hear. Uh, okay, hey everyone, thanks for joining. This is going to be an epic conversation. So many goats here, so many experts, outbound experts. So this is going to be probably one of the most insightful conversation of the past year on LinkedIn. So we're going to share our perspective on outbound, what's working, what's not, and where the market goes. And thank you everybody, everyone for joining. I think, guys, we can start with. It would be nice if everybody introduce themselves, and we can start from there.
Cool. And if you don't mind, I can start. Basically, Nikita, super proud of being here. And thanks so much for organizing everything and welcome to everybody, basically. Super pumped to be here. And we will really try to make our best to actually share what's working from the trenches and to really give something that is applicable right now, tomorrow, to actually have success tomorrow, to actually improve the result, to get more meetings, to get more revenue, basically. And in a couple of words, I do go-to-market engineering consulting for mid-market to big companies to actually drive more revenue per employee. Then I have a training program to actually turn people into elite GTM engineers and get clients.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you for the introduction. And Jenny, do you want to be next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'm Yanni. I'm CEO of an agency called Growth Today. We are certified Clay, Smart Lead Instantly, Limbless, HubSpot, and God knows how many other tools experts. There's a lot. We typically help mid-market SaaS companies grab what they're doing already in outbound manually and scale it across email, LinkedIn, and most recently cold calling too. And yeah, pumped to be here and thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Who wants to be the next?
I'll step in now. So yeah, I'm Tom. I'm a GTM engineer at Flowed. I've been sort of working with Clay for the past 2 years, day in, day out, as I'm sure we all have. Blasting cold emails to people who want them. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you for the
I'll jump in.
introduction.
I'll keep it going. Lindsay Rios. I'm the owner of Go-to-Market Done Right. I am a fractional CRO for SMBs and scaling startups, building intentional go-to-market strategy, which often includes outbound. And I'm also the fractional CRO for Luminetics. And I've been a Maildoso partner for quite some time too. And I think who's not gone? Michael went, Tom just went.
Yuri.
Yuri.
Yep. Hey, listen, I'm Yuri. I'm just trying to keep up with outbound because this thing evolves so fast. I can barely keep up with all of those AIs. So just trying not to get irrelevant, and that's pretty much all about me.
I like it. Okay. So yeah, thank you guys for being here. We're super pumped for this conversation, and I'd love to bring in the start this with one question, like how would you compare outbound today versus, let's say, 2 years ago? What's your perspective on what's already changed? What now? Easier? What's harder? What are the the things that
I guess it's harder in just a couple of words, right?
It's harder.
But everything's getting harder, right? It's the nature of the market, right? SEO is getting harder. Ads are getting more expensive. Meetings are getting harder.
Marketers ruin everything, right? Like there's a new channel, we just swoop in and like ruin the game.
Yeah, exactly. And when I go to SEO conference, they're like, "Oh, we really should jump into SDRs and cold emails." And I'm like, "Yo, more or less, I guess it's the same, right?" So, yeah, it's getting harder. So the quick story is you have to get smarter, right? You have to get smarter in terms of what copy you build, what copy you write. You get smarter in terms of how fast you are at building things, how fast you are at testing different things, how fast you are in getting different messages, how fast you are at checking what's working or not. And just smarter in general, right? Things, for example, about like lead magnets, right? Everybody talking about lead magnet. Like some days ago, especially more saturated niches, was like, okay, I send a loom, I send a piece of content. Now everybody's sending this and it's garbage most of the times. But if you go one step ahead, and this is good news for everybody who's listening, is like instead of a piece of content you can offer as a lead magnet, a productized service, a physical product, an AI tool. So if you actually do the effort to go one step further, you still have chances. And it's very cool because very few people are actually doing this. They just rely on what everybody's doing. So if you really want to actually go a step further, you can really get like better results. You just to be more effort, you have to put more energy, you don't have to be lazy. And this, I think, is the real big problem today, right? AI made us all very lazy. And yeah, I think we can do much better as marketers in general, right?
How much more quickly can you do things though, right? I mean, so there was this kind of golden rule of thumb in like startups go to market that double, triple. If you can do that for 5 years, you're a unicorn. And to what I just actually read a newsletter about a leader who left OpenAI and then built a 12 billion company in 8 months. Like how much, and like, it's just like how much more quickly can we do things? And I think we are like, there's going to be a point where it's just there's just I don't know. I don't know what the future will hold in that, but like I think we're at like this tipping point where it's just going to be, I mean, it's our full-time job to use AI tools and test it for our clients and find the edge. But it's already like just impossible to know every model and every tool. So I'm kind of curious how you guys are like tackling this. Like, do you just, because I as an agency owner, I get pitched by tools all day, every day. And I just don't have time to test them all. So how do you guys do this?
I think one thing when I'm work in regards to this is don't get shiny object syndrome. I think it's quite easy to try everything, and I've caught myself doing that before. I've caught myself trying this tool, trying that tool because it looks pretty good. I think keep your ear to the I keep trying to keep my ear to the street, and I have people that I trust. I'm sure you do too. And if I get a recommendation from them, one, two, three of them, rather than five random chumps on LinkedIn, then I think that's probably when I'd commit to testing it out properly. Or if there's something that really looks nuts, I'm not going to only operate if I get a recommendation. But I think it does help to have a group of people around you who can provide good advice.
I think also it's important that something I've maintained for a long time, just because when you're an AE, you're always going to have some kind of competition you're fighting against when you sell. And you have to decide how you want to answer those types of objections, right? When you have someone asking about competition or using a competitor, et cetera. So a really long time ago, I took the approach of likely there's not bad platforms and tools out there. Of course, there always are. But like across the board, when we're speaking about established companies and tools that exist, there's not bad ones. There's bad fitting ones, right? And so I think nowadays, with all of us on the panel, it's not so much that I want to know about every single tool and platform out there that, especially in regards to outbound, but I do want to understand the ones that are the best fit for what I do and what I want to do in my businesses. So that I can really use them properly, be an expert in them, I mean, how many of us have tools that we don't fully use? Right? I mean, and our customers, oh yeah. Like how many people are going to be like, oh yeah, our CRM sucks? No, it doesn't suck. No, the tool you bought doesn't suck. You're just not using it properly or fully, right? So I don't want to be one of those people. So I just make sure I really focus on what actually aligns with what I do, what my services are, what my special powers are, so that I can continue to make sure that they're the right fit for what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'd hop in just to add one more thing about this. I've been in outbound for, I don't know, 10 years probably. And the funny observation, it's always been hard. It's just keeps getting harder. And back in 2015, we thought it was hard, sending spamming the same emails to everyone without any research. And at that point, it was hard. And obviously, 2025 is a totally different game. What I've noticed is as the entry barrier gets down and lower, and the more players enter the market, and obviously it all is possible because of the tools. Back in the day, you had only SEPs. You didn't even know what are email warm-ups. You didn't even know what are the prep researches. I remember the days where I had to do the first line personalizations myself. So it was hard then. Right now, the tools allow you to create like amazing things. The problem is a lot of people don't know how to leverage that. And thus they enter the market with generic outreach or with basic personalizations. And it is harder for all of us who are trying to do the job because just by default, 95% are spam. And I know a lot of agencies who are taking this route because there are basically two routes. Either you go hyper specific relevant route, or you go scale mass route with hundreds of domains, hundreds of emails, thousands of emails being sent every day. And because of that factor, of a lot of those agencies taking this route, it's also harder for those people to stand out because just for the simple fact, people are bombarded with their emails. So I guess it always will be hard. It's just time for us to adapt and keep whining about that and keep stressing out.
Yeah, but I totally agree with you. But at the same time, yeah, it also gets easier to to start doing outbound and to master it. There's so many content out there. I remember like 2 years ago, there like most of the things you have to kind of figure out yourself. While like right now, there's so many good pieces of content on LinkedIn, on YouTube, a lot of communities where people share their experience. I think it's probably one of the best time to start doing cold email. And we have a question from LinkedIn: how to choose right GTM tech stack? I'm totally confused at this point. So I'm curious, guys, what do you think? How to choose the right GTM tech stack?
Without a lot of additional context, this can be answered in many different ways. Typically, this is like not rocket science, right? So like everyone would, or like I don't know, maybe it's just my little bubble, but I would I will go for the regular kind of repeated framework, crawl, walk, run. Like you don't need Salesforce as your CRM when you don't have a single client, you don't have data. It's going to be an overkill, right? That's just like human sense, right? That it's just keep it simple. So when you get started, just choose 2, 3 tools, maybe even one. Like you can get a smart leader instantly, and as they're building their platform with more and more capabilities, you don't even need Clay just to get you started, right? So maybe you can just choose 1, 2 tools and get you started. And then once you figure out a little bit of Spark that works, then you can think about, okay, what do I need in this specific part to improve? How do I get better lists? How do I write better copy? And then you can think about, okay, what are the features and functionalities that I need to build in the system?
Cool. I really like it. And I would even add, even before the tools, is who's your ICP? What channel is sensible to, right? For example, I don't know, you're selling to AEs, right? AEs are super responsive to LinkedIn. Why? Because they work on LinkedIn, right? So at that point, everything changes. Start mapping your team, get all the AEs, and maybe you can just start with LinkedIn. Or I don't know, maybe you are talking with construction companies. No ways they are on LinkedIn, right? They probably only reply to phones. Why? Because they are in the field every day. If they get a cold call, maybe something urgent, they have just to reply, right? And if you think it about this way, it just becomes like way easier. You map the TAM, so you have your ICP, you map the TAM, so the list of all the companies in your ICP. Maybe start with 1,000 if you want to do a test. You pick one channel, the one that you think is the best. You can probably interview some people to get this, or maybe you already know because you probably know your market. So you're like, okay, it's LinkedIn, it's email, or it's phone. Okay, you pick it, and okay, just do this for like 1 week. You do enough actions to actually prove it's the wrong one, and you can just check the results. From there, you try to understand if it makes sense or not to actually use outbound. And as a general rule of thumb, it makes sense if you're selling something that is at least 5K in terms of the ACV, and people are enough responsive to that channel. And after that, you can scale it up. So you don't have to learn everything, just start from that. It's way easier to think about it this way, right?
Yeah,
I
I would.
think,
Oh, go ahead.
please go, Lindsay. I'll follow on.
I mean, I can't like tap on the ICP thing enough. I mean, it's literally one of the things I do with companies, because everyone thinks they know their ICP. No, you don't. Knowing like the size of your company and the revenue and the industry and the couple like personas is not an ICP. That's just the start of it. But so double tap on like that part of it. And then just also, I think something that I'm sure all of us see a lot of when it comes to outbound is how quickly people will pivot when they think something's not working. And if you don't start with one, the right fully defined ICP, or at least the one you think if you're starting out with something new, and then even like a particular channel and break down each step within outbound within that channel, then you won't know what's working. You won't even know if you should be pivoting or not. And I just see that so quickly. Just as an example, if you go, here's what I think is an ICP, then I'm going to do an outreach email campaign, right? A cold email campaign. I send it to 400 people and I got no responses. So this didn't work. And I'm like, which part didn't work? Is it the ICP? Was it your subject line? Is it the first line that you're using in the email? Like, you didn't break that down enough to know. And so now you've decided that cold email doesn't work. So now you're going to pivot to another channel. What? Whoa, like, what are we doing here? So I don't, I'm sure all of you see the same thing with your clients, but like, that is still something I see way too often, is just pivoting way too fast because something didn't work.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I think the final point I've got to make here is I used to work for an agency in APAC based out of Bangkok, and we were targeting a lot of APAC. And I think in terms of email providers, like on the tech stack, there was a variety of coverage per region. So I think it may, and also like cultural uptake of LinkedIn. Like if you're trying to target Thai LinkedIn people, it's not going to happen. So I think take into account where you're trying to target in terms of data provider and just the existence of data in the first place as well.
Yeah, I like to think about how to start an outbound by categorizing where you're starting. So it all starts with your offer. Like I would like to add what Lindsay said, like it's all about ICP. And then what do you do with that ICP and what kind of offer you're creating? Because if your offer is irresistible, you don't even have to do all of that clay magic. You can just barely send like, hey, I think you might have this problem. Here we've got this solution, want it or not. And that's kind of it. That helps. That works for you if you have your offer figured out. But to give an answer to what tech stack, I like to think about it in three categories. The first is what channel I'm sending on. If that's email, okay, what is my SCP provider there? And there is you have like a bunch of different choices. You start there. Then you think of leads. Like if I'm calling, what provider I'm getting my phone numbers from, or if I'm emailing, where I'm getting my emails from. And obviously, if you're emailing, you have to think about infrastructure right now in 2025. And later on, you can just go with Claude for or Perplexity for deep research. Once you get a hang of that, you just go for something like, Clay or whatever, Freckle for enrichment and personalization, and then I think you should be good.
Very good point. I 100% agree with the ICP part with the offer. Like if your offer like 0% interest rate mortgage, approve everybody. Like imagine your reply, like no need for personalization like at all. You're gonna get like 40% with the decent social proof. So like it might sound like too good to be true.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, Yuri, because I think potentially we're a bit past the peak of it now, but I think we all probably all recognize the phase where everyone went crazy with AI and started doing some personalizations just because you could, and it turns out complimenting the prospect grandma's dog's fur coat isn't actually good for driving revenue. Just because you can do it with AI doesn't mean you need to. And I think like quite a lot of the time now, it's like in the campaigns that I'm running, I might find out some crazy info with AI or whatever, or with a tool with this, with that. But then there's no need to sort of crowbar it into the copy if it's not necessary. You can just use it as sort of a signal. And obviously the data's still the same regardless of whether it's in the email or not. And you just use that as to segment the list rather than to force it into the copy. Yeah, so that's one thing I've been doing recently regarding sort of personalization.
Oh, that's a
Yeah,
great
like
point, Tom.
right.
Go, yeah.
I was just like sort of joking, like, I don't know, we've got the same shoe size. What a small world. Please buy our stuff. Like that's
Yeah.
that's not like the personalizing for the sake of personalizing is just it just won't cut it anymore.
Yeah.
Especially if your offer is relevant to your ICP, to your audience. Yeah.
Or to your personalization. Sometimes I see these personalizations that have absolutely nothing to do with the offer, and it's just like, what am I reading?
Yeah, I just got one today that was, I see that you're an expert in go to market. One of my clients is too. What a small world. No, it's not. Like
Hey,
what I do
TA,
is
we
not,
breathe the same air.
yeah, I was like, being a go to market expert, I'm not unique. I'm unique. But my offer, like what I do, that's not unique. That's so silly. Don't say that again.
I think the ultimate flex right now in personalization is there are levels to personalization where level one, it's just basic observation, and then you go down to, let's say, level five. And level five is where you bring the value up front and you kind of show it like, hey, I've done the research on your pricing. And also, Tom, you mentioned something very important. It's not about signal, it's about what that signal means for their business and what they're doing. Like hiring is not a buying signal itself. It's why they're hiring, either expanding to new markets or whatever. So you kind of have to think in that language. And then when you bring in like value up front, I'll give you the best example of outreach I've gotten recently. So one dude saw that I'm active on LinkedIn, but I'm not present on YouTube. And he is the one who creates that YouTube strategy. So he sent me a message, basically like, hey, you're not on LinkedIn, like you're on LinkedIn, but you're not in YouTube. I created you a YouTube strategy. So then I go and click on that link, and I basically see a mock-up of my page on YouTube where I see my videos and a couple of scripts taken from my post and translated into videos. Like that's the ultimate personalization where I can visualize what's happening. And obviously, it's very hard to automate for everyone, for every business, but you kind of have to think in those terms. How can I take it further than every other player is doing? So I would say that probably is what's working now.
And maybe
Yeah.
Yeah.
to conclude and just add something about the personalization topic, and I think it's even the last question that we just got from the chat is if someone is watching this content, so you're at home and maybe you have to test outbound from scratch, basically, probably the easiest thing is not thinking about personalization at all, right? If you want to get to message market fit ASAP, you bring that list, the one that we talked about the TAM. You have 1,000 companies, 10,000 companies. You just create 6 value propositions or 6 different offers or 6 different lead magnets. That's it. Launch them. You will immediately realize and you will understand a lot about your market, what works, what doesn't, what opens your eyes, what gets people attention. And basically, outbound is not like paid ads, right? Paid ads works very well in very big TAM, like you have an e-commerce, you sell fashion, and you have 2 million people. Okay, so you can test the blue button, you can test the red button, you can test whatever you have in mind because it actually makes sense more or less and it's statistically significant. Okay, in outbound is not, right? Most of the times when you actually do your ICP, you figure out your market is way smaller than what you have sold, right? And by the fact that you have probably thousands of companies you can sell to, probably the easiest thing you can do is just testing what has the highest likelihood of actually changing drastically results, which is the offer or the list or the lead magnet. So pick your list, divide it with 6 different messages, only test the offer, only test the value prop, only test the lead magnet, keep it super short, like painfully short, whether it is a LinkedIn message, whether it is an email, or it is an opening from a cold call. And I think you will figure out a lot only this way.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite only ways to ever go, quote unquote, spray and pray, which is never, ever usually the way I'll go. Not saying that you can't. I think, Michael, you said it earlier. You either go super personal, right, and specific, or you go bigger and wider. But even bigger and wider, it's not my personal jam to go and just get 10,000 people and then go blast out, outreach and then see what sticks, right? The quote unquote numbers game. However, if you're trying to understand what value proposition resonates with your ICP, and it's not just your value prop shouldn't be different, quote unquote, it's how you say it, right? So how you're able to present it, how that resonates, then I am a huge fan of doing what Michael said, is you have different segments of the few ways that you're trying to say your so what, right? What you do, why you, how it feels the pain. And you're trying to figure out which one actually resonates. And sometimes we're so stuck in what we do and we think that we're saving the world with whatever we're doing that we're so like, don't you get it? I'm so helpful. And however we're saying it doesn't stick. And if you have customers, if you have active customers, a great way to try to figure out what actually resonates is go ask them. How did us working together? What's like the favorite thing that happened that we did? What changed your life? What changed in your day-to-day once we worked together? You might find that the thing they say to you is you're like, that's it. That was the thing that like really made your day-to-day change. Because you're going to think, just for example, if it was helping someone with cold email and they're like, yeah, you helped me get email meetings from cold email. They expect you to do that. That's literally what you sold them. So they're not going to be feeling life-changing things from the fact that you got that, but maybe it's the way you did it. Maybe it's the time you saved. Maybe it's the consultative nature of how you do it. And so go ask your customers that question to try to understand what is the value prop that could resonate. It doesn't matter if you're cold calling, cold emailing, cold LinkedIning. I see like questions about like which channel's the best. Kind of already talked about it earlier. It's going to be based off of your ICP, maybe your location, like Tom mentioned, and a handful of things. But what you say is always going to matter at the end of the day. And you have to figure out what it is that you need to say to get people to want to connect with you.
Yeah. Yeah. To conclude, I would say, like, if you want to choose a go-to-market stack, start simple. What's important is your offer, how well you understand your audience, and not how fancy the tools you're using are. And then once you figure out your offer ICP and you can actually send emails that resonate with people, and once you start seeing traction with cold outreach, now like at this point you might want to start thinking about go-to-market stack, because you scale and you need more contacts, you need like better automation tool, you need more domains, more mailboxes, you need like better reply management mechanism, you need like, you know, better, I don't know, lead management and stuff. And there is one very cool question: which part of personalization actually increases replies, and what's just noise? What do you guys think? What part of personalization increases replies?
So if I can start here, I'll just point out that there are different level of personalizations for levels of depending on who you're reaching out to. So let's say traditional approach, above the line and below the line. If you're reaching out to above the line, you have to only focus on company insights. It doesn't matter if you know anything personal about them, it's not going to move the needle forward. All those people care about is extinguishing the fires, helping some challenges, and moving things forward. This is what they care about. So you kind of have to take it into that route. For below the line, aka account executives, maybe seniors and juniors, you can sprinkle in a little bit of that information for personal levels, like, hey, I know you've got a corgi dog. Still, that's gonna look like cringe, and it's not gonna help you a lot, but it may work in that particular case. Forget about that when you're reaching out to C levels. All they care about is figuring out new ways how to solve challenges that they deal with. And like I've been lucky enough to talk with a couple of billion-dollar company CEOs, and they told me that pretty much the pattern that they respond to cold messages is the same. It's either they know that person or not. So if they don't know you, it decreases the points. If the preview line is interesting, if we're talking about the email, or the opener is interesting, if we are talking about the call, and then obviously, do they have something new to learn from this message? Can you like, are you able to bring something new, like of value that's worth their time? If not, they're gonna probably ignore you. So that's kind of my 2 cents about that.
That's very cool. I can share my example with my previous company called backlinkswappers.com. And it was a marketplace for SEO professionals, essentially for backlink exchange. And like 100% of our customers were cold email sourced. This is where we start building cold email infrastructure, because we saw it's like the biggest bottleneck. But this is where the interesting part starts, with the personalization. We've tried every single, you know, like approach to our audience. Our total addressable market is a couple million people. And we wanted to, like, at maximum, we were sending 10,000 cold emails per day. It was kind of spray and pray, but we were highly targeted. So, like, the reason why we chose cold email is because we couldn't just run ads, because we would get like a bunch of people from different industries, and they can't actually exchange backlinks. So we had to be like very precise with our targeting, and we were reaching out only to those companies for whom we could provide, you know, relevant backlinks. And nothing really worked until we start mentioning relevant websites they can exchange backlinks with. And then I remember this moment where our reply rates increased by 10x. We start literally getting like 10x more replies with just a, you know, little tweak. And it was like, oh, wow. So at this point, we start, you know, scraping, mass scraping at a larger scale, but but we didn't use any like, hey, I saw your last post on LinkedIn. It wasn't relevant to our offer, but when we start mentioning websites they already know, and we say, okay, they are on our marketplace and they can exchange backlinks with you, this is where they start answering, oh yeah, like I'm down. Um,
Nice. I think
yeah.
there's one thing that I've been doing is like say, for example, you're targeting marketing professionals and you've got decent range of titles within that marketing pool. I think the offer is your service is gonna impact each of those people slightly differently, or each of those persons are gonna have a slightly different KPI, this, that, the other. And what I've done before is work with an LLM and talk it through and think, how is this product going to benefit these range of job titles? It's all going to be slightly differently. And if you want, you could let Claygent do that decision making itself. Alternatively, what I've done before is get all of those outputs from the LLM on how the solution helps each title hit KPI XYZ, upload that as a PDF in the context in Claygent, and then that just makes it quite easy for Clayton to map a relevant personalization of how service X is gonna help you hit KPI Y, and you don't, Clayton's great, but if you can limit the freedom and hallucination by doing some upfront work outside of Clay, like that has worked well for me. I think like going after putting yourself in the prospect's shoes and thinking what are their KPIs is something that's helped me move the needle, I think.
Yeah, basically to conclude and actually support all of your points, I think is personalization, yes, as long as it uh, basically uh, talk about the problem that you solve. Okay, not generic random personalization, but a personalization that actually explain why you and why my service is relevant and why I'm reaching out. And the best example, I think, is what you said, Yuri, like problem reveal lead magnet. What can I send at scale so that I notice a problem at scale to companies and even have the solution to that problem? That would be ideal. Not always is possible, unfortunately. I think this only works if you can actually get the problems through open data. For example, I had like an extremely successful campaign where I was like, we were selling like a tool to get better reviews for restaurants and e-commerces, and we scrape reviews, only reaching out to e-commerces with low rate reviews, basically. And that's the perfect one because at scale, using open data, you can actually extract companies with problems, which is amazing for e-commerces, right? Because everything is public. You know if they are running ads, you know the products, you know the potential problems. The problem is not always possible, right? So you have to adapt it to the digital presence of your market, basically.
Yeah, also just to like sum it up, if there was one single piece of personalization that would work well and it would like make your campaigns magically 10x, it would work until it wouldn't, right? The Toms and Yuris and Michaels and Yannis and Lindsays of the world would come in and do all the same thing, and it would all just look the same and sound the same. Yeah, then again, marketers ruin everything. I do want to actually share one very concrete example that improves our results pretty well. This is not rocket science again, but it's actually not that simple to get right. This is what we call name dropping. So typically in the last email of the sequence, we say, hey, John, this may not be top of priority, or this is just not your responsibility. Should I reach out to Tom on your team instead? And then they say, yeah, go ahead and like talk to him. Or they will say, I just fired Tom. He's not even on my team anymore. Like your data is just so outdated, but it's still a response. And like it helps with deliverability, or maybe there's an objection. Like either they will say, no, don't reach out, and like they point you in the right direction, or just say, no, like you shouldn't really reach out to anyone else on my team. This is my responsibility and I will own it and protect it. So I don't think there's a silver bullet, but I really wanted to give like a very concrete example that today, I think helps. But now everyone will go out and try to do the same and it will just be ruined. So
Yeah, I think just to like kind of hone back in on what everyone said, and I think hopefully there's a common theme here, right? There's no silver bullets to any of the answers that we're going to be giving. There's no one tech stack we're going to suggest, no one channel, right? This is always very relevant to what you do, to your ICPs, etc. But I do think on the topic of personalization, like tiering it, like we've kind of all been saying, is very, very important. So when you have the ability to personalize at scale, do it. Of course, do it. And typically that personalization is based off of what you saw for your ICP, right? And someone also asked a question about, like, I do exactly what 1,000 other companies do. So like, how do I make this work? Then you have to focus on why you, because you is not what 1,000 other people do. However, when you have the opportunity to hyper personalize that isn't weird, right? Isn't either creepy or irrelevant, it is a gift. Spend the time. If that is your highest of high ranked ICP and you have some information at hand as you're researching them to be able to do a very personalized email or cold call or whatever it is you're going to do, do it, right? You could not have more ammo if you were going to try to outreach to me on LinkedIn, for example. There's so much on my LinkedIn profile and the content or the way I run around engaging with people that you could be very personalized with me in a great way. You could make me laugh. You could talk about something relevant. If I'm your ICP, you have now a really great shot at starting a conversation with me. You will only irritate me more if you give me horrible personalization when I've given you so much to work with, right? So like, take the gifts when you can, use that time to personalize when you can do it, tier to when you have to do it at scale, and that's it. Don't be trying to hyper personalize every person when you can't do it. Do it when you can. Use your brain. We got to use our brain still.
Yeah, it's a
Okay,
great
so many
point.
people in your DM, it'll just blow up.
And
But they
just
still, they
don't.
got to do the job. Yeah. Yeah, I would want to add one thing about that, how to differentiate. If you have like everyone is doing AI right now, so you gotta have to like find your differentiator. For me, it's just bring that value up front. It's either dependent on what channel are you doing. If you are on LinkedIn, start sharing those things for free. If you're doing that on LinkedIn, like on email, just find a client that you've built the workflows for. Figure out what are the lookalikes for that client and just send them the same workflow just for free. Like tease that. Like, hey, work with one company that helped and what the KPI change was. I think it'll work the same for you. They'll be happy to have it. And guess what? Eventually they'll be like, oh, dang, how do we implement that? And this is your trust building phase 101 has been done. So you can then start having a conversation.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Especially if like there are thousands other companies out there providing similar services, that would help you. Sure. And I'm curious, guys, what's your thoughts on this question? What's your process when a new client reach out to you? What do you ask? How do you qualify if a cold email will work for them? And I would like maybe go even more broader. How would you understand if cold email would work for this specific company or industry or
Cold
person?
email only or just outbound in general?
This question is about cold email. We can go with cold email and outbound in general. If you want, you can go
Yeah, I think
broader.
especially for cold email is it's very important, I guess, because to actually have an ROI, especially with an agency, I think there are some almost strict rules, which are so first of all, it's way easier to actually work with a company that has a very large TAM, right? It's very easy why. It's easy to understand why. It's because, so basically what a client expectation is more meetings, right? And if they want more meetings, you need a big TAM. It's very easy. Okay. Why?
And
Because
TAM
if you have like, The list
Can
of
you help to understand
companies,
what TAM is? Yeah.
yeah, sorry, the list of companies you can sell to that are ICP basically. Okay. And the fact is, actually, very few companies have a very large TAM when you actually analyze it deeply, unfortunately. And the reason why is if you have 10,000 companies, there's only like 3% of the market that is probably in the buyer journey or maybe actually open to jump on a meeting with you about that problem right now. Okay. And if you have 10,000 companies, that number change weekly, right? So it's big enough to change fast. While if your TAM is small, uh, you need like more demand gen, more an EBM approach. It's longer term. But if the service is cold email as a service, you actually need to deliver those meetings. And maybe you as a client, you expect those meetings. So this would be the first. And secondly, you need a good offer. You need a good offer, a really good offer, especially in 2025. And ideally, you're not selling to a regulated industry, right? We like to hospitals, like to governments, like to actually the two things they go at the same in the same direction, right? Big TAM and regulated companies. It's very difficult to find like a big TAM of regulated companies, luckily, right? And so large TAM, extremely good offer or lead magnet, because the lead magnet could become the offer to actually jump into the meeting. And I would even say like an ACV that is at least 5K, probably more right now, because otherwise the economics simply makes no sense. This especially if you work with an agency, basically.
5K of companies or people?
5K as an ACV, sorry,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
of the contract value. So
Okay,
you
yeah,
must sell
average contract.
something that is at least 5K, or you have something like with very high LTV, like, I don't know, you are a bookkeeping company, so your product is super sticky and it costs like 200 per month, but the average client stays for 10 years, then you're like, yeah, it actually makes sense, basically. Okay. And as a general rule for good clients, I would say is you have more than 1 million revenue because you know you actually have a business and your offer is working. Okay. Otherwise, it's riskier, and you have to think that it's just more market validation than lead generation, which is a different thing, right? Okay.
Super helpful. From my perspective, like if you're B2B, you operate in Europe or the US, probably cold email is good for you. But there are sometimes some exceptions, like oversaturated markets, probably cold email. It's harder to stand out. Like although I saw a couple of brilliant cases where people figure out how to stand out in extremely saturated markets and get very good reply rates, even though they provide SEO services. Like in our community, we have this Roast My Copy channel. And then one of our clients just shared their cold email copy there. And another client provided an alternative for this. And I think it was brilliant. She offered to kind of, instead of pitching directly SEO services, she offered to kind of start with the problem. And basically the cold email was, hey, I was trying to find your phone number on Google, but I failed. Mind if I share like a quick guide on how you can like, I don't remember the specific CTA, but you got the point. So like she led with the problem and then offered a quick way to fix this. I can imagine this campaign would have crashed.
Yeah, Nikita, one example comes to my mind with well, it's a different company, but the same approach. They were selling the product to help legal experts basically do all those things faster with bookkeeping and with all those
Mhm.
documents to find the things. And the problem is their product was too futuristic for the market, and all those legal experts are too old school. And the product cost was $100. It was not that much. What we did, I remember it was such a simple tweak, but it worked. Instead of offering a product for $100, they started offering a bookkeeping for $200. And basically what they did, they just got that information, put it in the product, and the product did all their job. And just a simple tweak in the offer helps you like either makes or breaks your campaign, and that you don't have to overcomplicate it sometimes.
Yeah, if you have a solution that where you can publicly find out or point out to someone if they have that problem, then outbound is really great for you because you can immediately give someone value for free in the message just by pointing something out. If you don't have that ability, it is harder. So if forever ask that question, like what's our process to see if outbound can be effective? Like that's definitely a great one if you have it, but you can't do anything about it if you don't.
Yeah, I think this ties to a little bit to another question in the chat. How do you do outbounds? He does the exact same thing that 1,000 other companies are doing, and how you answer that, I think, is much more of a strategy question first and not an outbound question, right? Like if you don't know who you can serve the best or how you're differentiated, it doesn't really matter if you do outbound or you do content marketing or you go to conferences or you cold call. No matter what marketing channel you will eventually go for, if you don't know the answer to this question, everything might just fail. So it's much more of a product market fit, service market fit, and strategy question first, and then the implications of that can be translated to outbound. But I think that's a bigger problem to solve at first.
Good point. Good point. And do you think, guys, content marketing impacts lead generation? Does that impact reply rates at all?
Huge, I would say, right? It's the big topic of demand gen and lead gen, basically. So if you can have like big awareness and you actually start do some lead generation, it works way better. Basically, it's I guess
Exactly
obvious.
called, right? It's not
Yeah,
being called. Like, yeah.
it's
People already know you.
so much better. Yeah. The only problem, I guess, it's of course it's expensive to do demand generation on content, especially to actually get eyeballs on that piece of content, and it doesn't have a strict correlation to ROI. I mean, it has, but it's difficult to prove, and most of the times companies don't want to invest in that because it's difficult to explain it to CFOs, basically. But it's always you generate demand, you close demand. It works better, especially if you sell something like very high ticket. Maybe if you have something super greedy, you don't really need that kind of demand gen in general. But yeah, it's everything. And to any company that think long term enough and really believe in this, yeah, totally invest in it. Makes a lot of sense. At least like 30% demand gen, 70% lead gen in terms of budgets. So totally open to that. I think is a game changer. And I even think that you really have to figure out what is the right channel even there to actually do demand gen or content. For me is the same almost.
What I find the funniest looking at that like outbound market is majority of agencies getting their customers through either referrals or content, not through
Oh yeah.
outbound particularly. And that's kind
Completely.
of the funniest thing for me. And it kind of speaks volumes about the importance of it, that you have
Not
to
all though.
not all. I'm not saying that, but what I'm seeing by like just observing, and it makes total sense. Like if you are following the evolution of outbound, buyers want more control over the decision process right now. So essentially, they want to spend less time with sellers and more time learning in communities, researching online, going to conferences, checking out LinkedIn posts. So basically, just getting information from all the angles before they start talking to a sales rep. So if you are just to go for the route of outbound, just like it is perfectly fine. Just be aware that you're fighting for like 19% of the market. If you are present in the demand gen game, all of a sudden the whole market starts opening up. It is so much easier to sell, and this is why I'm kind of like a big believer right now that outbound is evolving more into allbound, where you kind of have to be in content, but whatever the platform, whatever the way, either that's ads, either that's content, and then obviously converting those leads is just so much easier. And I have an example of a CEO who's been doing just outbound, and we've added kind of a few strategies around how to start building presence in those 80% of demand gen. Half a year later, the customers that churned came back. She's visited dozens of conferences due to her receiving invitations and thus closing deals there. It's just night and day.
Yeah, I think to bring it full circle, when the first question you asked, Nikita, was like, what's harder and what's easier? And then we were like, well, it's always been hard. Still hard, right? What worked 10 years ago? God, I was one of the early users of outreach, for God's sakes, not to age myself, but like this was when outreach was nobody in a way. And we got to send out the exact same outreach sequence to 1,000 people. Why did it work? Because those people thought we were only emailing to them at the time, right? They thought my little bit of personalization for their title, where they lived in that sequence, was only going to them. So it worked until everyone did it, and it didn't anymore. So the things that have always worked, they still work. Just how we're trying to do them has evolved. It will always be better if you have an all-encompassing, content plan with your outbound, with everything else that goes into it, which is why social selling is now being said as table stakes, right? It's not that it's a different thing that we ever wanted. It's that it's giving the thing that we still always want. We want information, we want connection, and we don't want to be treated like spam. So you just have to evolve.
Yeah, totally agree. Lead generation does impact reply rates, but content creation, content marketing doesn't impact your lead generation. But to add to your point, just today I talked to an agency that closing, they are our client, and they are closing 20 new clients a month with cold email only, with little to no content marketing. I was like, guys, you're crushing it. And they are very good with like doing research on their leads and personalization. But to wrap up, I think, do you guys want to say anything as a conclusion to our today's conversation?
I think just thanking you and the team for organizing this. Nice to get together with these guys and speak to you properly. So yeah, thank you very much for organizing this, and thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Guys, same. Thanks so much.
Yeah, same.
Yep.
Learned a lot from you guys. It's always nice to speak with people in the trenches.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here. It was nice speaking with you. Have a nice rest of the day and
Evening.
good night.
Cheers, guys. See you later.
Cheers.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.